We are going in 5. Good luck, studio. My guest on... Oh, hello. You just did...
I interrupted you by saying you old ham. Sorry.
Welcome to the Humourology Podcast with me, Paul Boross. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. My guest on this edition of the Humourology Podcast started his career as a sports researcher for Granada Television and now serves as the president of international production at Sony Pictures Television. His work has led to the acquisition and production of some of the biggest hits in the world, including The Crown and Sex Education, just to name a couple. Before his time at Sony, he served as managing director of content and production at BBC Worldwide, where his team was responsible for shows like Dragon's Den, Doctor Who, and Strictly Come Dancing, which holds the record for the most successful reality television format sold in over 60 international markets. When he isn't spreading quality television programming across the globe, you can find him sitting in his own special seat at Old Trafford as a devoted Manchester United fan. Wayne Garvie, welcome to the Humourology Podcast.
Thank you, Paul. Nice to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you. And, you must be pleased that United look like they are going to make it into Europe.
Well, Paul, my youngest daughter and I go to a lot of away games and cup finals, of which we've got one coming up. And I don't think there's anything in life which has got the potential to be the greatest amount of pleasure, which is stopping City winning the treble, weighed against the greatest possible human misery of being at Wembley when they turn us over and win the FA Cup on their way to a treble. I can't imagine that there's any other thing in life that has within 90 minutes the potential for such pleasure and such pain.
Yeah, it's proper drama, isn't it?
Oh, football, sport is the best drama. I mean, that's the thing you can't, and some of these stories that, City will sing of United fans, we live in the past because we've got a glorious past, and some of the drama. What's interesting about this has now become a football podcast, Paul, is the story of the 1999 season of Manchester United School is one of unbelievable drama and last minute wins, etc. I think the sad thing about City are a brilliant machine. I know the people who run the club, they're unbelievably fit, they're brilliant at what they do, but there isn't the romance and the drama this season that you had in 1999 with the late goals against Liverpool in the FA Cup and the FA Cup semi-final, the Juventus European. Shall I shut up now, Paul, so we can talk about
No, because as a United fan, I could talk about this all day, to be honest with you. And everything. And funnily enough, earlier this week, we just recorded Clive Tilsley.
My friend Clive.
Yeah.
Clive and I worked together at Granada, as you said, in the that sort of thing of my career. We worked together there, and we still, in fact, I think we've got with our wives got dinner coming up quite soon.
Well, then you can both discuss your time on the Humourology Podcast. I'm sure you're going to discuss nothing else.
We'll talk about.
So, anyway, you were born in Plymouth in Devon, and where your father was a Royal Marine and your mother was a shop worker. Was humour actually valued in your family?
Yeah, actually, my dad comes from one of 9 kids, and his family had been moved out of London in the war to Suffolk, and I grew up in Suffolk after he got out of the Marines, and it was quite a matriarchal collection of. There were seven sisters, 2 brothers, and my grandmother, who was was quite an extraordinary character. Some would say an alcoholic, and there are many stories about her. Most of them I couldn't really repeat here. But, however, humour was always something that and when you get together now, and it was that sort of piss-taking. I learned at a very early age, actually, because there was a big family on my father's side, and they all lived, and a lot of the the daughters all married American servicemen to get out of Britain, to go to America. So I've got family all around America. But it was always, when we got together for family gathering, there was that sort of, quick-witted humour, which is always, that was part of our sort of family growing up.
And so, I mean, you went to Woodbridge School after that. Was humour part of that coping mechanism?
I was an 11 plus boy. I went to a grammar school, which then went private because grammar schools, I'm so old that I actually went to a grammar school. And I found it quite tough, actually, because I came from a very different background to most, I was a scholarship boy or whatever. And I suppose you had to, yes, not by being the clown jester, but humour was something definitely, yes, it was something I had to use to sort of find my position in that sort of society, as it were.
So, I mean, would you say that whole Jesuit thing of give me a child of 7 and I will give you a man was true of you? The humour was already there. You were. Well,
I don't know. That's a very strange analogy. The Jesuits and a family. The Jesuits, you actually take someone out of their family thing and do something else different to them. Paul. By the way, I had no idea when I signed up to this it was going to go into a long story about my life. I can't imagine there's anyone listening to this who's interested in this. By the way, but this is quite extraordinary. I don't know about that. I think humour is something. I love the British sense of humour, actually, and I love the fact we don't, that thing about why is fascism? Why did fascism never really take a hold in Britain in the 1930s in some other of our neighbours? And one of the reasons might be you can't take someone seriously. Goose step, you just can't. There's something about the British. We like to prick pomposity, don't we? And I still think that's part of the British character. Humour is part of what we do. I love the British sense of humour.
Well, it's interesting because you spend a lot of time in LA, obviously, yes. As have I, and I've lived there. What's the contrast there? I mean, they don't really understand the sardonic side of the humour, do they?
Yeah, they don't get irony, do they? I remember being with Jeremy Clarkson and I were in LA once, and we were talking to oh God, this is gonna be a terrible story now because I can't actually remember the story. But we were talking to some Americans, we were talking about irony, and he was going, you don't really get irony. And he made some ironic statement, and they didn't get it. And that was the evidence that they just don't get it. They don't get that at all, but they fall for our charm a bit, don't they? I mean, and that's the thing about America, of course. America is this huge continent, and there's lots of different Americas within the United States of America. So you've got to be careful you don't just see the LA bubble as sort of, the whole of America.
In New York, I find that they have got that. There seems to be more of a link to Europe.
That's true.
And their humour is therefore sharper, I would say.
Yes, and it's very European. It's that very Jewish humour as well, isn't it? Which is, and there were European Jews who came over with that brilliant sense of humour that they have. So yes, you're right.
Did you ever see the Neil Simon play Laughter on the 34th Floor?
No.
Which was all about our show of shows.
Oh, yeah.
Sid Caesar, and the writer's room in that was everybody from Woody Allen to Mel to, I mean, it was literally everyone who went on to change the whole face of comedy in that room. Highly recommend it if you haven't. You've got a PhD. Very few people in television have a PhD, and I understand from our conversations that you, at one stage, were even thinking of becoming a politician. What kind of politician would you have made, do you think?
Probably not a successful one. That's the first thing. I think I've always been interested in politics. I've been a member of the Labour Party since I was 16. So I joined when I was old enough to join, and I left a couple of times. The Iraq War, obviously. But I keep coming back to the Labour Party, and so I call myself a socialist. I'm a socialist. I believe in that society should be organised for the benefit of the many rather than the few, and that's something I really believe in. I've got lots of friends who don't share those views, but that's something I feel very passionately about. I think the trouble with politics is, show business for ugly people and all that. I mean, politics now is full. If you look at the government, it's full of people who've failed to make their mark in other places. The Tory, you know, if you look at these people like Raab, Patel, all of them, none of them have been successful in the jobs, the careers they set out to do. So they all fell into politics. And I find it inexplicable that somehow they end up running the country. They're completely, you know, they've got no background. They've got no ability apart from having a view. You know, Michael Gove is a columnist in a newspaper. Oh, that's it. David Cameron was a privileged guy who was a very poor communications guy at Carlton, who once pretended to be a cleaner to avoid a call from a journalist. You know, these people are not high achievers. And I think that's one of the sad things in our society, that public service has been kind of devalued. And it's people of my generation to blame for it, really. But people like me had a choice, probably, back in how long ago it was. And perhaps would it be, I mean, not just me, but lots of people I know, perhaps we should have, you know, gone down that route, gone off, had careers. What I loved about politicians in the past, I'm not saying they were necessarily better, was a lot of them had a hinterland, didn't they? Particularly after the Second World War, you had all these people who had served in war, Dennis Healey, even Macmillan. You know, Macmillan's whole ethos of being a one nation Tory was because he had been in the trenches of working class people and seen the sacrifices they make and the humour of them and everything else, which is why he was opposed to a lot of what Thatcher did in the 1980s. I don't know where I'm going on this again, but anyway,
but it's interesting.
What's this got to do with humourology, Paul? This is just
no, but the humourology is a problem. It's very interesting because people think that humourology is just about jokes and funny, but actually humourology is about good humour. It's about humility. It's about humanity. And all those things that come into play as a result of it. So actually, what you're saying is really interesting. I mean, because who goes into politics now? Is it the people with humility, humanity, or any kind of good humour?
There's that Martin Amis quote, isn't there? Which I can't remember now, that I saw this week, which is something about the people who rule us basically have no sense of humour and, you know, they've got no humanity to them, really. I remember I was very excited, obviously, like most people were in 1997. I was director of television at Granada when Labour won that election. And I remember that weekend very, very well. It was a very sunny weekend. I came down to London, actually, and we took a friend's son who was just in a buggy around to Downing. It was all Downing Street. It was an exciting moment. You thought the world was going to change, even though you sort of knew cynically it probably wouldn't. And then over that period of the next couple of years, I got to know lots of the new Labour intake of new MPs, and I was so disappointed. They were so disappointing because they were, I suppose, what we would have called at university careerists, really, and they didn't have any personality. And then you'd meet, of course, the Tories. They were quite good fun. You know, there's nothing more terrible than that. Yeah. But humour in that situation can be, in politics, it's like Johnson and his whole bumbling oaf sort of shtick. You know, it's interesting how people play on those things, don't they, to create a caricature of a human being that they play to rather than their real person. And occasionally the real person comes out, doesn't it? You see that.
Yeah, well, it's the Rishi Sunak when he was asked a question he didn't like. And you suddenly, he suddenly turned, and you would see that with Boris Johnson as well. But they seem to do the kind of overriding "I am humorous and nice" thing, but it's very skin deep, isn't it?
I think so. They don't really believe it, do they? They're saying what they can to get them. Perhaps we all do that. I mean, perhaps what do I spend most of my time doing? Selling things, really, selling programs, selling people, selling Sony, selling myself, to people, and you do, you have to create a sort of a public persona, don't you, which is different to the private persona. So perhaps we're all guilty of that.
Well, that to an extent, but you've been very successful in your career, and I think that, and we've had, conversations whereby I think that you actually embody the whole humourology concept in the sense that you do really like people.
I do like people.
And that's, you're not playing at that. You're seeing the good side of people most of the time. And I mean, I've heard you say, my job is to create an environment where talented people can fulfill their potential. What part does humour play in that role?
Well, our job in TV is really about failure, actually, because most of the things that we develop don't get sold, don't even get made. And then most of the things that do get made meets widespread indifference from audience. You know, widespread indifference is our second. It's failure followed by widespread indifference. And then, you know, because I look back when I was head of entertainment at the BBC, we had two shows that were created that were huge hits, which were Strictly Come Dancing, that then became Dancing with the Stars Around the World, and Dragon's Den. But no one remembers the, 20 other shows that we made that no bugger can remember, because there weren't, or there was one that was really, really good. Anyway, but you know, it's failure. And so my job as someone who oversees a bunch of creative companies and lots of creative people is basically support people when things go wrong, really. It's easy to be there when things go right, you know, and by the way, I like being there when things go right, don't get me wrong. But, you know, my job is to really dust people down after they've collapsed in a heap after something's gone wrong, pick them up, dust them down and push them out again, so there they go. And a lot of that is, of course, you've got to use humour, you know, and it is about, to your point, the very nice things you're saying about me, and I'm glad the check did arrive in time for this. But I like people, and I like people in all their complexity and difficulties. You know, as I've got older, I've realised that, you know, there are people I work with who sometimes say and do things that you think, well, you shouldn't do, and I'll talk to them about it. And sometimes they listen, and sometimes they don't. But human life is all about complexity, really. And I think humour is a way that cuts through a lot of that, isn't it? And you've got to be humorous. You've got to embrace humanity, I suppose. So to your definition of humourology, it's about understanding people and liking people and wanting people to do great things. I love it. I mean, you know, that thing, you know, when your friends are successful, you hate it when your friends are successful. Actually, I'm quite the reverse. I love it. I like it better with people I don't know are successful. You know, I'm still someone who sends people little handwritten notes if I see something that's a brilliant piece of television or something, because I think people should be told when they do great things.
I couldn't agree more. I do exactly the same thing. And if you actually glory in other people's success, that is having good humor, being and I actually think that it also aids resilience, doesn't it? Because if you don't take things too seriously.
I've had, like all of us in our careers, you know, I've had some terrible moments. I mean, things have gone pretty awful. I mean, I ruined the Krypton Factor, which was a very successful television show for like 20 something years, and I took it off air. You know, and when something like that happens, which can be, there's two ways to respond. You either go in a corner and cry for quite a long period of time. You believe me, you do. But also, you just got to face up to it, because actually, it's when things go wrong, you realise actually that's when you take your lessons in life. No one really sits around, you know, thinking in too much detail about why things really go well. It's really when that deep, dark look into your soul, etc. And I realised early on that when things go wrong, you've got to face up to it. You've just got to recognise it. There's no point lying about it. And the only way you can really do that is by humour, because that becomes, you know, I'm very, very open with people I work with, particularly young people, about things I've got wrong, because you want to encourage them, because if they don't, things will go wrong in their careers and their lives, and they've got to learn how to respond to that in the right way, I think. And a lot of the time, yeah, it's about having a positive, humorous outlook on life.
Well, yeah, it gives you a different perspective, doesn't it? I mean, I think the term failing funny, i.e. you look at it in a different way and then you go, well, do you know what? It's going to make a great story. Your story about, screwing up the Krypton factor is a story that you own.
Yes,
and you make it funny. So you reframe the whole thing in your own mind, don't you?
Yes, I think that's a good way of looking at it. Actually, it's very true. I think you have to own your failures as well as your successes.
So can you be a great communicator without understanding humour?
Oh, that's a good point. Well, I don't know. Was Abe Lincoln a gag master? I don't know if he was really. He's probably a good communicator. I don't know. You could be, I suppose, but I couldn't. I mean, one of the few things I'm good at is getting up in front of people and doing a speech off the cuff. I'm quite good at it. I'm available for hire for that. And I'm quite, I know it's good at it, right? And I like an audience for whatever reason. I like getting up and I like doing a thing. And sometimes, by the way, I can get a bit near the knuckle on some of my leaving speeches for people, but by and large, I think I get away with it. And so I think humour is a part of communicating with people because people remember the gags, don't they?
But that's pretty much it. I mean, and you are a master of communication in that.
Oh, you are a charmer.
No, well, all right. I mean, I'm blowing some smoke, I know, but
Right, still like a chimney.
But actually, the reason that you do it is because you say you enjoy it, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We have a lot of people who obviously hate it because the 70% of people's worst nightmare is to stand up and do it. What advice would you give to people who have to get up and speak at work events or weddings or whatever?
You just got to throw yourself into it. And you've got to control people get nervous about getting on a stage, don't they? And I think you've got to, first of all, you've got to own the stage physically. You've got to walk around and you've got to give eye contact with people. People, once you get, obviously not stare at them continually, Paul, like you do in that sort of slightly stalkerish way. But no, you got to work the room, haven't you? It's all about those things that you just, when you come on, you own the space. Once you own the space physically, you're confident about talking, I think. And you've got to be very physical about it. You've got to use your arms and your hands. And I always think when you address a group of people, try to get as much eye contact as possible. And then if you're doing a work thing or something where people in the crowd, I always have a few people I pick on, in inverted commas. It's like any stand-up comedian. You see them go on, they'll get their mark in the audience and they'll keep going back to that person or what have you. But it builds up a rapport with people, and that's what you're always looking for when you're communicating with people, isn't it? A rapport. How do you make them all feel they're part of the conversation and engage? There's nothing more when you do presentations and you look around the room, you see someone falling asleep. I mean, that's pretty. We've all been there, haven't we?
No. It's also what you're talking about there in terms of psychology is you're talking about state management. You're managing your state. And there's a saying if you want anyone to go into any state, you have to go into that state first. And you're kind of doing look, I'm relaxed. And then everybody goes, somebody's in charge.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
You've known many, many successful people, obviously, throughout the years from sports. I'm thinking Sir Alex and to, stars all over the world. What is that special sauce that they have? No, but is humour part of that special sauce that gives them that elevation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time with Fergie when I was young. I mean, he was very kind to me. He was very, very kind to. He had a terrible temper, and you just occasionally see that at times. I remember, but he was very kind to young people. Kenny Dalglish was the other one. When I was when I started, I had two teams to look after, which was Man U with Fergie and Liverpool with Dalglish. And I remember once ringing up Dalglish to ask for an interview for we did this weekly football show. And I remember, and we wanted I can't remember, where Bruce Grobbelaar or something. And he was like, no, why do you want to talk to Bruce? They go, well, I don't know, he's playing his 600th game or something, some nonsense like that or whatever, They go, no, you don't want to talk to him. You want to talk to Stevie Nicol. And Stevie Nicol was a great footballer, was, of course, a terrible speaker. And Dalglish knew this. And Dalglish knew I didn't want him. And he was just taking the piss, really. And first of all, you go, because you're intimidated, because you're a young man, and this is one of the greatest footballers and football managers of ever. What a great man Kenny Dalglish is. And you realise, you got to get on their wavelength, haven't you? You got to find their humour, and their humour is great. And then you realise as well, humour is a way that does it. Once you get on that, it means you no longer see Kenny Dalglish as this iconic figure that you're not fit to kiss the hem of his dress, but actually as someone you can relate to. And that's what great people, I think, find a way to, I haven't met people like Obama or Clinton or people like that, but people always say their communication skills making everyone feel, it was just about you and them, and they would obviously use humour and humanity within that.
Yeah, well, I am lucky enough to have met Bill Clinton, and it was extraordinary because, I fell a little bit in love. He does that thing. There's some kind of magic, charisma, extra chromosome, whatever you want to call it, and part of that is about finding a wavelength. You use that term, getting on somebody's wavelength, but isn't humour the most direct way to get on somebody's wavelength? If you can laugh together, you're sharing something, aren't you?
I think that's right. And that once you, of course, if you're going to have a difficult conversation with someone, which in my line of work you have to have a lot of that. The way you cut through it, and your sort of backstop is always the humour. Once you build that relationship, you can laugh about something. You can even approach some really difficult conversations through the humour, can't you? Because you've got that, you can make light of it, and before they realise it, they've realised, oh yeah, you're serious about this. And a lot of people, I suppose, criticise me. Do they? It's criticism. Sometimes it sort of sounds like it, and they go, "Oh yeah, we know. Yeah, when you make light of something, it's when it's serious. Because sometimes you tackle a very serious issue or problem you've got by going about it in a humorous way and what have you, and then they realise, oh no, there's a serious point to it. So that's the way in. I suppose I do that. I can't think of any examples, or certainly none that I can't tell you about. But I do that quite a bit, thinking about it. Oh my God, this is like being on the humour couch, isn't it?
What it's here for is to give you a moment to actually think about how important what you do. And I invite people on who I know have a brilliant sense of humour, but it's part of that therapist thing of like, why does it work? You, as a company, you own Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And I was wondering, because you had the idea to put Jeremy Clarkson in the hot seat. And
I did.
I think that the difference that made a difference was his humour in that chair. And it was suddenly elevated the show to another place. Were you conscious of that at the time?
Well, I for some time, I'd been thinking about how we could bring Millionaire back, because of the valuable piece of IP that, as you say, we own. And Chris Tarrant had obviously done an amazing job. I mean, he was the one who started what became the biggest game show in history, and it was all down to Tarrant, and he got it brilliantly right. And funny enough, I always fancied Bill Clinton to do it, but because you need somebody. See, the thing about Millionaire is you've got to be smart on that show, because technically it's quite a difficult show to do. But also you've got to, and this is what. So I've known Clarkson for quite a while, and I don't know why I didn't have the idea 5 years earlier. I mean, it's funny where ideas come from. But then one day I just thought, I'd watch Clarkson do that. Clarkson could do that. Of course he could do that. And I rang him up and said, look, I've got this idea, but I don't want to tell you over the phone because I think you're going to laugh at me, but I want to come and tell you about it. So, and I had this speech prepared, why you should do it, all these reasons, why the show was brilliant. And I sat down and, I got my speech ready, and I went, So he said, well, what is it? What is this about? I said, I want you to present Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And he went, I'm in. And I went, oh, no, hold on. What do you mean you're in? No. What do you mean you're in? And he said, well, don't you know I love quizzes? And I said, no, I don't know you love quizzes. I think I knew you loved playing Scrabble, but whatever. And he said, yeah, and the greatest quiz of all time is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I can't imagine anything I'd more want to do. And then I went, well, I'm not sure you can do it. You've got to prove to me you can do it. You've just offered it. I said, I'm not going to ITV with it until you prove to me you can do it. So we got some people in. We flew them over from Ireland and we did this sort of test in an office somewhere. And what was brilliant was that Matthews, the producer of the show, had come up with the idea that we had this Ask the Host extra round, which I think is a bit of genius. And because it allows Jeremy to it puts him on once more on the side of the contestant. And the thing about Jeremy is that he and I differ on quite a lot of things. Quite a lot of things we have quite big rows about. And we quite enjoy the cut and thrust of that. But basically, people love the farm show, the Clarkson Farm Show. And people will say to me, I love him in that show. He's great in that show. And I go, that's the Jeremy Clarkson I love. Because that's the Clarkson I know. He's self-deprecating, a bit of an idiot, a complete tosser. But there's something great about him. And the thing about A Millionaire is he's brilliant at it because he wants people to win. And he wants them to do their best, right? And what disappoints him about some of the contestants is when they let themselves down or they're not quite brave enough, or they're not, because he wants them to do so well. I mean, he shed a tear when we had our first Millionaire winner. I mean, I was there, I went down the sea. I said, you're crying. And he went, no, I'm not. And I think he was, because actually it's about that humanity. But yes, he has brought, he's a different take on it, and he brings humour to it. And yeah, it's great. He's great on it. He's great. Yeah, look, you don't, it's very rare in television. You have these ideas that you're actually able to follow through on them and they actually work. And that's one of the rare times when it's actually happened.
But it's brilliant. So what makes you laugh?
My wife claims I don't laugh that much, and her greatest success in life is making me giggle because she loves it when I laugh, which I think is a little bit unfair. But so what makes me laugh? I don't know. Lots of things make me laugh, I think. The idiocy of modern life, the Tory party, these idiots running the country. I mean, they're just. I was watching that. What can you ask me? What if Suella Braverman? Did you see that interview? I mean, this is going to date this thing, but she's basically, done something on speeding, whatever. Who knows what she's done? But when she's asked the question, rather than saying first of all, I got caught speeding, I got the points, I paid the fine, end of story. Right? That sort of, and everyone goes, fair enough. I don't really care what you might have tried it, whatever. Instead, she comes up with this parroting. My focus is on the 5 priorities of the government. And you're going, no. You suddenly now we think there's smoke. There's not just a smoke. There's a forest fire behind you. Anyway, so that makes me laugh. I don't know. People make me laugh. People doing, just people. Because we do silly things, don't we? My daughters make me laugh. A couple of idiots. Lots of people. Even you occasionally have made me laugh.
Well, let's not go too far. Okay. No, but it is about that ability to actually see the silly, isn't it?
I think the absurdity in life. Look, one thing I will say is I did, talking about my lovely wife, I did say to her very early on in our relationship, don't take me I can't take myself too seriously. I work in an absurd industry of nonsense, and I'm a laughable figure within that, because I think taking yourself too seriously is the worst thing in life. If you can't laugh at yourself, then I think you're a very poor soul, and so probably the person I laugh at most is probably my own idiocy.
No, but that's brilliant. I mean, I think it's actually very, very important for people to be able, because otherwise you become a Tory MP, and you can't see the funny side of we are all fundamentally ridiculous.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're absolutely ridiculous.
And that's a great answer. It's one of my favourite answers.
That's why you should never look at yourself dancing or having sex, should you? I don't think, because yes, that would be taking it to yes.
Note to self: get rid of the mirror above the bed.
Yes, yes, I would.
As a fan with Manchester United, I love to go back to Manchester United. Have you ever found any inspiration or parallels between the worlds of television production and the world of football?
Oh yeah, all the time. When I started my career under a legendary head of Granada Sport called Paul Doherty, whose father was a great Irish footballer, who also managed Manchester City for a while, and when they weren't very good. And Paul ran us like a sports unit. And what you realised was, teamwork, everything, loyalty to each other, and also what you often do is you have a common, you go over a common enemy. Ferguson was brilliant at that. But I saw that, you see it in other people. There's someone you got to have someone outside who you're against, or something that you can judge yourself about, and I think in a lot of the places I've run and stuff like that, always had that. And then the other great thing I think about this a lot with Ferguson was he created 3, possibly 4 great teams, and he never rested on his laurels. And there's that thing about when you look at the growth of any company in any industry, there's a curve of growth, and then it inevitably tapers off. And the thing to do is just before you reach the peak, you have to change things to do that. And I was mindful of that in some of the places I've worked. How do you, particularly when I was running BBC Entertainment, you think you can't rest on your laurels. You've got to unfortunately get rid of Paul Ince, Mark Hughes, and Andre Kanchelskis, because you've got the Nevilles, Beckham, and Scholes coming through, and then you have to get rid of Beckham because you've got Cristiano Ronaldo coming through, or whatever. It's constant reimagining yourself, and that's quite. And the other thing about football is that football changes all the time, and we're always trying to compare. This team's better than that team, which you can't do. It's a good game, but football changes quite dramatically, and it's very, and also new stars come up the whole time. And you've got to be, if you're interested in football, you could be a talent monitor and so on like that. And you have to do that in my game as well. You've got to be aware who's coming up, and you've got to change your style of play to the environment. I started out, at Sony when I arrived, we were largely non-scripted. That shows like game shows and what have you. Now we're mostly scripted companies because we could see a change coming with the growth of streaming services, and we acquired Left Bank and we bought 11 Films and Bad Wolf, and now we're doing really well on that. But you constantly, I keep thinking to myself, well, what's next? What's going to change? And so on. I think also the great thing about it's how you keep yourself fresh and sort of. How did Ferguson stay at the top for so long? Because he kept renewing himself, but he kept finding that unbelievable passion and desire to be at the top, and that's really difficult in any walk of life. And most football managers have a strict shelf life. It's getting younger. You've got a lot of football managers now in their 30s. They'll probably be burnt out by the time they're 50. It used to be you become a football manager probably around about 40, you get to 50. Some of these great managers like Shankly and Busby weren't that old when they retired, what we look at now. So I'm probably too fond of the football analogy.
No, I don't think you can be too fond, because I think it's very relevant. I also think what I wanted to just delve very quickly into was putting personalities together, which is this is a humourology project. How are you doing that? What are you looking at? Because what Fergie was a genius at was making sure that those personalities gelled, whether that was humour or whether that was humanity. What's your idea on that? How do you give people jobs, for instance? What's it based on?
Well, you've got to be very careful, haven't you, that you don't go for the sort of people like us. You employ people like you. One of the great things about having a mixture of companies is that you understand you need diversity of voice and opinion and so on. And that one of the challenges in our industry is, how do we get greater diversity? And for me, it's not just about race and ethnicity, it's about class as well. And I think about that a lot, and I don't think I've been achieved as much in that as I should have done. But I think it is about, finding that. It's brilliant, isn't it? You work out. I remember when we set up some of these, when I was at BBC Worldwide, we set up a lot of independent companies because we weren't allowed to buy any companies. So I decided, well, I'm going to set up my own. So, and then you look at, you want a creative lead probably, and you want someone who does the business. And that was a little model and we set up a couple of companies that was really good. We always found a yin to someone else's yang. And then you work out, well, then you need someone else. As the company grows bigger, what else do you need? And what strengths of that person and the weaknesses of that, and how you and also one of the other things is about letting people go, which is the most difficult thing in many ways, because you grow up together, you have a team and you achieve good things, great things together. And then you've got to recognize sometimes you've got to move people on, because people become, at some stage, someone's going to move me on from this job, I hope. One day someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and go, it's all over, mate. And that's right. And that's proper. And that's where it should go. But you've got to be, as leader of these businesses, you've got to take that view. And sometimes that means you have to make very difficult decisions when you know the human beings involved, because it's about the business, or in Ferguson's case, the football club. He had to, there were people he had since the age of 16 who he cared about deeply, but he was able to take that, some would call it ruthless. I wouldn't. I just think it's
clarity. It's clarity, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you've got to handle, Ferguson sometimes got it wrong with a few people, but then, but you've got to handle it right. You've got to help people exit in the way that respects them, and demonstrates what they have brought to you as I think that's important. Respect,
which is all, and doing it the right way. Well, Wayne, we've reached the point of the show which we like to call quick fire questions.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Quick fire questions.
Who's the funniest business person that you've met in your career?
I think Tim Hinks is a very funny man, my friend Tim.
Yeah.
And in terms of David Quantick, who's a writer who's worked on loads of stuff, I always think Quantick might be. Johnny Vaughan introduced me to him back in the day and said, Quantick, he's the funniest man in England. And I've always thought Johnny was absolutely right about that. And Quantick is still probably the funniest man in England.
I'm going to have both of them on the show, just on your recommendation.
You won't be disappointed.
What book makes you laugh?
Well, I used to always be a big fan. You might find this odd, really, but I've always loved those Evil in More Vile Bodies, Decline and Fall. I recently read a book that I read recently that really made me laugh. It's The Trees by Everett Percival. Was it Percival Everett? Whatever. Which is a brilliantly black humour book, which I can't recommend enough. That made me laugh. I always liked satire, I suppose. As a kid, I loved, Swift, Gulliver's Travels, and Candide, Voltaire, and all those kind of things, those classic humorous stuff.
What film makes you laugh?
There's one scene that I come back to. There's a film called The Best in Show, which is about a dog show. And in it, Eugene Levy plays a character who has two left feet, except they are literally two left feet. And I don't know why, just thinking about it now makes me laugh. Whenever I see it, that little scene, and they show his little feet, always makes me laugh.
Well, of course, it's Christopher Guest, isn't it? Who also did Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap.
I think genius, and actually everybody talks about Spinal Tap, but I think Best in Show is right up there with it as well.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Oh, very, very funny. And that whole cast, he keeps getting
Yes,
the same people around.
Yeah.
Magnificent. Let's take a shift to the other side. What's not funny?
Racism, misogyny, any exploitation of any other human beings. I can't find any humour in all those. I think misogyny is one of the worst things in society. I find that. I can't fucking hate it. I hate it when people don't treat, or you see some of these attitudes now coming back again. I thought we'd moved on from that. Treating. I have a poster in my office which is work hard and be kind, and I think show kindness and tolerance to other human beings. One of the great things about living in London is that it is genuinely one of the most tolerant places in the world, and you can largely, there's a few people out there who aren't, but by and large you can be who you want to be, and why shouldn't let humanity do no harm to others and be kind to other people. Seems to me to be a pretty good way to lead your life.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. What word makes you laugh?
Boross. I'm laughing.
Do you know what it means, by the way?
No, I don't.
Hungarian. It's bor in Hungarian is wine, and I am the keeper of the wine.
In so many ways. Yes.
He keeps quite a lot of it, doesn't he?
Yes, you're an old wine sack.
Thank you. That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. What sound makes you laugh?
What sound makes me? I don't know. I tell you what, I've got a Tesla, and they have that little on the Tesla. You have this thing where it makes a farting sound when you turn, and so when you first get it, you find it. You think this is ridiculous. Why has someone gone to this effort to do this? This is a ridiculous thing. And then you put the kids in or whatever, or friends, and you drive around. It starts farting, and each farting noise is different. It's the most childish thing in the world, and yet it's brilliant that someone's just done. It's ridiculous. I'm laughing about it.
There you go.
There you go.
Penultimate question.
Yes.
You've got a PhD. You're very bright. Would you rather be considered clever or funny?
Oh, Christ. I'm just happy to be considered.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And the final question is desert island gags. You can only take one joke with you to a desert island. What is it?
I'm afraid it's an Adolf Hitler gag, I think. So they find Adolf Hitler. This can't happen now, but in the 1970s, Adolf Hitler's discovered living in Bolivia or Venezuela or somewhere. And he's brought back, he's flown back to Munich, and there's a big press conference, and all the world is waiting. Hitler's been found, terrible man, obviously, and they seem to say, they interview him, which is obviously what they would do, because of course people would fawn over him. And they say, so Mr. Hitler, if you had your time all over again, how would you change things? This time, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Why? Is that an acceptable joke these days? I don't know. Is it? I mean, it's just,
No, of course. That's a great.
I always think of the Clash. White man in Hammersmith Palais. If Adolf Hitler flew in today, to send the limousines out to meet him, and that's so true.
Yeah. Sadly. No, that's brilliant. Well, Wayne Garvie, thank you so much. I consider you the Sir Alex of television production, and
idiot.
And thank you so much for being a guest on the Humourology Podcast.
Paul, it's been a pleasure. Lovely to see you and talk to you as ever.
Lovely to see you. The Humourology Podcast was hosted by Paul Boross, produced by David Rose, music by Steve Hayworth, creative direction by Les Hughes, and additional research by Helen Sykes. Please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. This has been a Big Sky production.